So welcome everybody to an introduction to Pressbooks, hosted by me, Stephen Wilford, the Open Library Coordinator here at eCampusOntario. So this webinar and workshop will just be a brief hour-long introduction to Pressbooks, why we chose Pressbooks, and some of the features that Pressbooks has to offer that we really like. But we like to start all of our webinars and workshops with a land acknowledgement. So the offices of eCampus Ontario, which are located in downtown Toronto, are within the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Participants are encouraged to take a moment to consider the land on which you have the honor and privilege of living, working, and learning. If you're comfortable, feel free to drop your own land acknowledgement in the chat. So this is our, so welcome to the eCampus Ontario Pressbooks workshop. So Pressbooks is a free tool available to educators and learners through eCampus Ontario, which allows you to create and customize resources for your teaching and learning. So our agenda for today includes why do we use Pressbooks, so why do we like Pressbooks, how to create a Pressbooks account, how to set up your book, how to create a book, how to enhance your book, how to add any interactive content, and how to organize and export your book. If you have any questions, just please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section of the Zoom meeting, and we'll get to them throughout different points of the workshop, and we'll be able to answer them as best as we can. So we like to start off with why Pressbooks, why we use Pressbooks, why we like Pressbooks. So the first point is Pressbooks is offered in what we like to call a write once, publish many platform. So users can create a single book and make it available in four different formats, including webbooks, ebooks, or printed textbooks. Content creators will find the platform easy to use as it's been developed using WordPress, which many users will find familiar. New features to Pressbooks have improved the experience for educators. These features include the ability to clone or copy an existing open educational resource from any book in a Pressbooks network, and this is something that will be discussed later. But it's a good example of some features that are always constantly being added to Pressbooks to enhance user experience and enhance the ability to use and reuse resources within Pressbooks itself. We also like to say that Pressbooks is the best of physical and digital. For this, we mean Pressbooks is built to make professional looking books without coding or formatting knowledge. As I'll discuss in a little bit, if you have this knowledge, you can use that knowledge to enhance your book even further. But it's not a required skill to have to use Pressbooks and to get the best and the most out of Pressbooks overall. Pressbooks also has many features that take a book from being a flat and I don't want to say boring, but a flat PDF to an interactive teaching tool. Using Pressbooks, you can embed videos, add interactive content, and even allow students and other educators to annotate and interact with the text right in your web book without affecting any of the print PDF exports that you might make. So now that we understand what Pressbooks is and why we use Pressbooks, we'll talk a bit more about the eCampus Ontario Pressbooks instance. We like to start off with creating a Pressbooks account, as this is usually the first step in creating a resource in Pressbooks. So this is just a quick tutorial on how to create a Pressbooks account. So if you do already have a Pressbooks account, that's okay. If you don't have one and you are associated with one of eCampus Ontario members institutions, feel free to follow along with this if you like, or just keep this in the back of your mind as you go in and you create your own Pressbooks account come to the future, and you can play around with the features in Pressbooks. So before you create your account, it's important to note that that each Pressbooks is essentially managed network of individual books hosted at eCampusOntario.pressbooks.pub. If you want to drop that link the chat, that would be wonderful. So this is where you can go to create and sign into your account. Each book you create will have a home page within the specific network. So there are two ways to create eCampus Ontario Pressbooks instance account. So the first of these ways is displayed in this little GIF here. So you're going to request a Pressbooks account through the eCampus Ontario website, eCampus Ontario Open Library website, and this will send an email directly to us at our inbox, and we'll be able to create an account for you through all this information, and you'll receive an email confirmation within 1 to 2 business days that your account is created, and you can go in and start customizing and creating your own Pressbooks. If your institution has single sign-on or SSO, it's an easier step, which you can see here. So with single sign-on or SSO, you can log into Pressbooks account through your institution's credentials. So in this case, it's the University of Ottawa. So you just hit sign in and then go to institutional login and type in your institution, and then it will bring you to your institution's login page where you use the credentials that you already have at your set institution to log in and create and start creating in Pressbooks. If you're interested in adding your institution to our single sign-on list, just reach out to us. There is a bit of a process involved with it, so we'll have a bit of a back and forth on signing up for a single sign-on, but it is a great tool to have. It allows for easy access to Pressbooks, so I would recommend being involved in single sign-on if you're interested. So after you successfully sign into your account, your interface on Pressbooks will look a little bit different depending on if you have books in your Pressbooks already or if you don't. So if you don't have any books and you're a new user, you haven't created anything, your interface is going to look like the image on the left there, with not much on the dashboard, but just an option to start creating a book. But if you already have books, or if you were invited to collaborate on a book before creating your Pressbooks account, your interface will look like the one on the right, which is what we're going to be using moving forward to talk about the different features of Pressbooks and how you can enhance your book and export your book and create a book in Pressbooks. So these are just the two interfaces that you will see once you finally log in. So I will check. This is a great place to stop for questions. So I will see if there's any questions in the chat, or if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A, and we'll answer them as we can. Thank you for dropping all those links in the chat, Rama. Very helpful. Here's something. So Will has a question in the Q&A. So he says, do you only need an institutional account then? So if you are associated with one of our member institutions here at eCampus Ontario, you will, if your institution does not have single sign-on, you will just send us your name, your role, and then your institutional email, and we'll be able to set up a Pressbooks account. But if your institution does have single sign-on, you'll be able to just sign on to using institutional account. Rama, do you want to? Okay, Rama's typing an answer. Good. So Will, I just had a follow-up question about if UOT has single sign-on. So someone else has asked, is the creation process similar to the adaption process in Pressbooks? So I don't know that off the top of my head, but I will follow up, and we'll be able to answer that question, unless Rama can answer it right now. But yeah,
maybe,
go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe just a clarification about that adaptation process in Pressbook, because you do need to be able to sign in and have an account in order for you to be able to adapt any resource in Pressbook. So maybe if you want, you can type just a bit more clarification, then we can provide you with an answer.
Thank you, Rama. Rama's always there to help. She's great. Okay, well, while they type the clarification, we'll move on to setting up your book and getting into the weeds a little bit on how to create resources and books within Pressbooks itself. So the first thing you're going to do when you start creating a book in Pressbooks is to what we call set up your book, set up any information about your book. So there are just some important features or about your book and the metadata about your book that you're going to want to consider before you start creating and typing and enhancing your book. So these are just the first steps in understanding how the book is created and what you can do with the book and the information that's embedded into the book itself. So we call this get detail oriented. So this is some of the details about your book. So you're going to start by entering your book information. So this is where you, the title and any descriptive information. You can add contributors to different categories and choose your book's license. You're also able to upload a cover image or have Pressbooks design a simple cover under export and then cover generator. So this is just some information about your book. So other users who want to use and adapt your book can easily find your book and they can understand what the book is about and any licensing information and who you are as the author of the book before they adapt and they reuse your book if the licensing allows them to do so. So the next step is what we like to call looking good and feeling good. Give me 1 second. So it's recommended to select. So this is where you select your theme and how your book is going to look at the end of the process. So it's recommended that you select your theme at the beginning of your project, as different themes have different appearances and customizations that will alter the PDF, web, or ebook version of your content. So it's important to have an idea of what you want your book to look like at the beginning. You can always go back and change this, but it might affect some of the appearances in these different versions. So there are over 20 different themes to choose from in Pressbooks. The default theme is Malala, and other recommended themes are Jacobs and McLuhan, as Jacobs and McLuhan do tend to be a bit more suited for textbooks and traditional textbooks. However, it's up to you to select a theme depending on what you're creating. Each theme does have many different customizations to choose from. For example, you can choose colors for the call-out boxes or choose how the table of contents is displayed in the book. You can also set different settings for PDFs, webbooks, ebooks. And finally, if you have the skills and the knowledge, you can edit the styles using CSS to create your own custom book styles. Again, if you have the skills and the knowledge, it is something you can do. Just make sure you're confident in the ability. As we say, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you have those skills, it is a great way to add an extra level of customization to your Pressbooks through this step and through this theme. So after you find a theme, the customizations that work well for your resource and for your book, you can also add collaborators to your book, and you can work collaboratively within Pressbooks by assigning collaborator roles from the book dashboard. So there are 5 roles for collaborators, ranging from subscribers with read-only permissions to administrators who have permission to edit any of the content in your book, and there's a wide range in between. You can also do what's called bulk add if you have multiple users with the same role that you need to add. If your collaborator already has a Pressbooks account, you can search for existing user and add them to your book. Otherwise, you can create a new user in Pressbooks by creating a username and providing their email address. You can collaborate with colleagues, anyone else in our network, including other educators across Ontario. So the Collaborators tool is a great way to bring in colleagues from different institutions to help create any open educational resources, any resources in Pressbooks that you might be working on for larger projects in general. So you can have an unlimited number of collaborators for your Pressbooks, for your Pressbook. However, no two people can edit the same content at the same time. This is an important thing to keep in mind. And I'll make sure to bring it up again, but no two people are able to edit the same part of the book at the same time. You just won't be able to save any of the content that both of you have added. So if you do have a collaborator, just make sure that your work schedule is lined up, so you're not working at the same point of the Pressbooks all at once, just so your information will be saved. The next step before you begin writing your book is to consider the sharing and privacy settings of your book. Specifically, it's recommended that the fields for book visibility and Pressbooks Directory be reviewed. So these are areas you can revisit these areas throughout and after finishing your project, but it's great to get started on them at the beginning and have an idea of how you want to share in the privacy settings of your book. So the highlighted sections here are book visibility. So if you have it set to private, the book is only visible to people who you invite to the book. But if it's set to public, anybody can view the book even as you're working on it. And then the second option there is the Pressbooks Directory. So Pressbooks has their own repository of resources created in the Pressbooks format, and they have their own directory. So if you want your book to be listed in the Pressbooks Directory, you'll hit yes there. And if you don't, you'll hit no to exclude it from the Pressbooks directory. The last step before you start creating your book is to consider what your book's landing page is going to look like. This is also known as your web book. So the web book is the home page of your book. So each book you create will have its own URL. So if you remember the detail-oriented slide, so this is where all the information from that slide will appear. The home page of a book looks like what's on the slide there. There's a book cover on the right, and underneath it you see a drop-down menu with all the different download formats. We'll talk a bit more about downloading formats and the different ways you can export books later. You can also have your basic book descriptive information, as well as a clickable table of contents that allow you to jump around the book. There's also more metadata that you can include at the bottom of the page, including any licensing information and any information about the authors and collaborators of the book directly onto the web page. So before we move on to creating your book, I'll check to see if there's any questions about setting up your book. I see the Q&A. So someone asked if the recording would be available to us. Yes, yes, it will once the session is done and the recording is downloaded. I'll send it off to comms and they'll be able to send it out. So I see Ron is answering those questions. Okay. Yeah, so there's a question about how you can edit the cover image, including the title text, and can you please go through the plugins? So we will be going through the plugins in a little bit on how to enhance your book and the interactive features that you can have for your book. But to edit the cover image, you will just go to on the side of your Pressbooks under export and cover generator. You'll be able to edit the cover image of your book. Are there any options so Eugene is asking, are there any options for Pressbooks to be non-linear, that is not to be organized as a sequence of consecutive pages? So you can, to answer that, you can once you're done creating your book, you are able to organize your book in any way that you like, and move any chapters or parts around in any way that you like, that you see fit, and will help your project be the best that it can be. So I have a question regarding sharing and privacy and public access of an ebook published on eCampusOntario Pressbooks portal. Ram is typing the answer, but I'm reading it out loud. If the book is public under book visibility settings, will it be indexed by Google search and other search engines? Also, what is the process of adding a book into the eCampus Ontario library? So I can answer the eCampus Ontario library part of that. So we do have a web page where you can suggest a book to be added to the open library, and that will be sent to us, and we will review it and we'll catalog it, and it will be added to the library. I'll talk a little bit about that as we move on. Rama, I'm not sure if you are able to answer the question about the being indexed on the Google search. I see you're typing.
Yes, I am typing that answer,
Yeah.
but I can answer it live. So yes, so if your book is visibility is set to public, it will be indexed by Google search and other search engines. Now, it depends on, I guess, the type of SEO or keywords that you have for your book, whether it's commonly popular or not. So that really impact, where on the Google search result your book will show up. If someone search, for example, medicine practice, right? So just keeping that in mind, that it is searchable, but it may not show up on the first page. So maybe 5 or 6 pages down the line, depending on the popularity of the keyword or the titles that you have. And in terms of the adding a book into the eCampus Ontario Open Library, yes, so when you create your book in Pressbook, it's not automatically indexed into the Open Library, mainly because we have different criteria. So we do have a criteria that what you create has to be open and has to meet other open educational resource requirements. So I'll drop the link there. We will have more of a extensive guide coming out to sort of help you understand what the criteria are. But we have it separate so that you can actually use Pressbook to meet your educational needs. And sometimes that may not necessarily equal into creating an OER meant to be shared with everyone. But we encourage and welcome any that you create to submit to the Open Library. I think yes, that was all the questions.
There's actually 2 more in the Q&A. So can a CC share but no adoption license be applied if published through eCampus Ontario? So yeah, you can add any Creative Commons licensing to your book directly. There's options in Pressbooks to add any licensing, and there's all the CC licenses are in the drop-down menu there. So we are able to add that, and if it does have a CC license, that does meet the criteria of adding it to the open library. And is an ISBN number given to the books? Rama, are you able to answer that one?
Yep. So ISBN is not given automatically to the book in Pressbook. So that is sort of a self-publishing endeavor that you would have to partake on your own, because we're not a publisher, so we just provide the tool to help you with publishing. So what I'll do is I'll drop the link to how you can acquire an ISBN in Canada. So it is free to Canadians. So it is something that you can sort of read the requirements and see if you meet, and if your book meets the requirements. So it's something that you can definitely pursue and apply to your resource in Pressbook.
Perfect. Thank you, Rama. Rama's the expert on the publishing industry. So
I'm just here to help you.
Yes, I leave those questions to her. Okay, perfect. If there's no more questions, we'll move on to where it starts to get fun. We're creating your book. So just to review, to this point, you just learned how to create a Pressbooks account. You've learned what Pressbooks is and how to set up your book. So including the title, book description, privacy settings, collaborators, book cover, webbook URL, and other metadata, including licensing. So now is where it gets fun, where you can start to create your book. Just to clarify, in the context of Pressbooks, a book, as we call them, is just any written project. So it can be a syllabus, any course materials, casework, casebooks, frameworks, textbooks, workbooks, or any extra resources that you want to add as part of any book that you've created. So the 3 book covers on this slide include, the first one is just a textbook. The middle one there is a textbook with over 150 H5P activities, which I'm sure took a very, very long time to create. And it's quite the feat to have that many interactive H5P activities in one book. And the last one is actually a simulation game. So I don't know much about pharmacies, but I have gone into the simulation, and it's really well done, and it's really neat to see some of the features that you can create in Pressbooks and see them done to the best of Pressbooks, and the really neat things that you can do with interactive tools within Pressbooks. So we'll start. Step 1 for creating a book is to know that there are 3 main ways to create a book in Pressbooks. So the first one of these is just to simply hit create a book. So if you're creating something new and you like to, and just click under My Books, create a book, and you can write directly in Pressbooks, or you can copy and paste your text into the sections of the book. So if you have it written in a Word document or a Google Docs document, you can just copy and paste it into the book. This is the quickest way just to type directly into Pressbooks if you want to create a book off your own book, just write in Pressbooks itself. The second main way to create a book in Pressbooks is to actually clone a book. So you can clone any book from that already exists in a Pressbooks network, as long as it has an open license that allows for any adaptations that you're doing to the book. So you can clone the content and the book settings by copying the URL and pasting the book's URL, and then assigning a new URL. So if you do go to my catalog and then click on clone a book, this is the screen that you'll see. So you'll have this little box here where you can input the information of, so the URL of the book that you're cloning, the URL of the book that you are creating and that you're cloning to, and then the title of the book that you are cloning to. This is a great resource for adapting any open educational resources and making them your own to use in your teaching and learning. It's also good to note that when you do clone a book, you can add a source comparison. So it's a handy little tag at the bottom indicating the book's source and linking back to the original source. So this helps readers understand the version of the book that they're looking at, and you can even enable side-by-side source comparison to show readers exactly what has changed in your version compared to the version that you're cloning. So it's just a good way to make sure that folks understand that it's a clone from a different book, and exactly what you're adapting and what you changed in your own adaptation and your own copy of the book. So the third option for creating a book in Pressbooks is to import content. So if you've already created content elsewhere, then you can import that content into Pressbooks. So you can import EPUBs, Word documents, XMLs, and directly from URLs. So for example, if you've been writing and distributing content through a Word document in a learning management system, then you can import that content and create a web book that can be shared and distributed in different formats. You can also use the import feature to pull in specific chapters if you want to remix or only use a portion of an existing text. So importing specific chapters is something I'll cover in just a little bit. But that's also a nice feature if you just want 2 or 3 chapters from a resource. You can import just those 2 or 3 chapters. So when you do go to import a book, this is the screen that you'll see. So it's just asking for the import type, so the file type, and there's a drop-down menu there of all the file types that you can use, and then it will ask for the import source. So you can select the file on your own computer, or you can select to import it directly from a URL, and it will import the information directly into Pressbooks. So just like everything in life, importing one format to another is never a smooth transition. So you might have a little bit of cleaning up to do. So we do provide a list of best practices for importing the files. So some of these best practices are to make sure your file name doesn't have any special characters, so just numbers and letters, just to keep it simple. You're gonna need to check your file size type, so maximum is 25 MBs, just so the file doesn't get too big and it's you're able to import it. Tag any new chapter titles as heading 1. So if you're creating in a Word document, if you have under heading 1 for each one, Pressbooks will recognize that as the title of a new chapter. So that's a super easy way to add new chapters into any resource that you're importing. Use the styling pane. So all basic tags such as bold, italics, etc. will be translated, but special fonts and colors won't be translated into the import. And then just make sure all your images have alt text for accessibility purposes. So once you import a book, this is the interface that you'll see. So you'll see a list of the chapters, which enables you to choose which chapters you want to keep and where in the book you want things to appear. So chapters can easily be reorganized later through the organize menu. So don't worry too much about getting everything in the correct space at the moment. It's also handy if you're adapting only parts of a book. So if you have a list of chapters, but you only want to import and adapt maybe 2 or 3 of those chapters, you can select those chapters to import, and Pressbooks will only import those sections that you choose. So it's a super handy tool to have when just selecting certain parts of resources that you're importing. So the next step in creating a book is to choose and organize parts of your book. So when you create a book, Pressbooks will automatically generate some parts of the book. So automatically generate some front matter, main body, and back matter. These automatic sections can be easily deleted or modified to suit your book in the organized section of the dashboard that you can see on the screen there. This is also where you'll create the body of your book. So you'll click on a chapter or part to view the editing interface, which we'll see in the next slide. But the parts of the book is just a super easy, simple way to organize and all your chapters and move chapters around and add any parts or chapters or front matter, back matter that will help you enhance your book and make sure you get all of your information into your book in the order that you want to see for that book. So finally, you'll get to the editing interface. So after you create a new chapter or part, this is the editing interface that you'll see. So this is a rich text editor with a visual and text option that allows for limited customization. So everything is simple to learn and does look clean. So since Pressbooks is based on WordPress, as I mentioned, some of the advantages are it's pretty simple to learn and it looks pretty clean. So if you look at this text editor, it's very simple. It is a rich text editor, but it's simple to look at. It's easy on the eyes, I like to think, and you're able to add customization in whichever way you like. So some of the disadvantages are limited customization without coding. So if you do have CSS knowledge and skills, you can go into the text editor and you can use the CSS and HTML skills to add a bit more customization to the interface and to the content in your book. But having those skills, not everyone has those skills, so you can go into the visual editor where you don't need to have those skills to customize and add content to your book. And like I mentioned earlier, there's no synchronous editing. So if you have two people working on the same part at the same time, you won't be able to do that. You won't be able to save any of the information that you put into the Pressbooks. So before we enhance the books, I will check the Q&A, see if there's any questions. So Kim asked if for a book in progress, is it preferable to write everything in a Word doc, Google Doc, and then import, or could you import the start of what you have and write the rest in Pressbooks? So to answer, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. So if you do want to write everything in a Word doc and then import it, if you find that easier than using the Pressbooks text editor, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you enjoy the Pressbooks text editor, you can use that as well. If Rama has any insights into that. Good.
No, that's good. That's
Right.
yes, pretty much what works for you. What I would say or recommend, and we usually do recommend this, is if you are importing from a Word document, you just want to make sure that all the special formatting style is erased and removed. So you just want to make use of the header that comes with Word document automatically, because that header 1, header 2, that's what gets translated into chapter 1, chapter 2 when you import your Word document.
Perfect, thank you. And then we'll ask, can the Word file include equations? So there is, you'll see in the enhance your book section, there is, Pressbooks does have a feature where you can add any math and other equations directly into Pressbooks using some of the plugins that are available within Pressbooks itself. Before we move on, does anyone have any more questions? Feel free to
I think Will's question was, can the Word file include equations? So if you are using a Word file that you will import into Pressbook, it can include equations, but you must make sure that the equation still has the syntax coding that it needs to actually render the math in Pressbook and on the web. So if you know that you're going to be using math ML example, which Stephen will go over, then you just want to make sure that it actually has the end code embedded in, written in the Word file before you upload it so that it can actually render.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying, Rama.
No problem.
Perfect. So this is where Pressbooks gets even more fun, I like to think. So now that you've created and set up your book, there are some things that you can do to take your text from just a book into an interactive textbook or an interactive web book. These are all features that you can test out on your own, and they're great to use just for adding some spice, if you will, into your web book. So the first one of these is you can add media. So you can add or embed media types to make your content more engaging. So for example, you can embed YouTube or other videos to break up text or add audio where appropriate. Embedding media is accomplished by simply adding the URL in the visual box here. Alternative, you can add media files by uploading or pasting the image URL on the dashboard. You have an option for media where you can upload any media. So when you're in Pressbooks and you're kind of playing on Pressbooks, if you want to add any media and you're stuck, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be able to help you with adding any videos, images, or audio directly into your Pressbooks. So it's a great way to add some pop and add some outside videos and any images to your book. So it's not just a wall of text. It's a great thing to add to enhance your book. You can also add special call out boxes for learning objectives, key takeaways, or examples. So this is an example of a text box here. So when we do the full 2-hour training, when we have the second hour is a deep hands-on dive into Pressbooks, we always like to have folks write about their favorite food. So this is just a example of a text box that has to do with food. So it's just a good way to show how the text boxes can look and how they can kind of pop out with more information. There's a variety of text boxes that you can choose from, as you can see from the drop-down menu, and you can choose whichever one best works for your webbook and for your resource to get the information that you need across to your users. You can also add any glossary items, glossary and footnotes. So glossary items can be added to the back matter of your book. So the glossary will be added directly to the back matter itself of the book. So the glossary items allow users to hover over a key term to read a definition and create a glossary at the end of the book. So the two buttons circled there are the glossary. The GL is glossary and FN is footnote. So when you're adding glossary terms, the box on the screen there will appear, and you'll be able to add the term that you want to add to the glossary and the description of said term. And adding footnotes just allows anchored footnotes into your text to provide either more information or any citations into your text. So these are both great tools to have to add more information to your resource. Pressbooks also offers two different methods to create mathematical equations. So as we were talking about not too long ago, so there's MathJax and Quick LaTeX. I'm not a math expert, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But MathJax translates mathematical markup into accessible equations on the web. So this is the default mathematics rendering solution. You can also use three mathematical syntaxes, including LaTeX, ASCII Math, and MathML, which is the one Rama mentioned not too long ago. You can also use Quick LaTeX to write native LaTeX syntax directly into your book without wrapping shortcodes around every part of the equation. So it just simplifies adding math into your Pressbooks, and it makes it an easier process than writing out full equations, and folks are able to see math equations visually within Pressbooks itself. You can also add interactive content through H5P and the H5P plugin. So if you did not attend the session on Monday about the eCampusOntario H5P Studio, where we dove into and had a demo of the H5P Studio, H5P is just based on HTML5. It is just interactive content that you can add directly into your Pressbooks, including multiple choice questions, find the hotspots, flashcards, word searches, a wide variety of content. There's actually over 40 different interactive content types that you can use to add to your book. So like I said, quizzes, drag text, find the words, interactive videos, etc. So the plugin does allow you to upload, create, and share and use rich interactive content directly in Pressbooks. So it's a great tool to add some interactivity into your book, and allow for quizzes and different interactive videos added directly to your Pressbooks book. It's a great tool. We love H5P. If you want to learn more, reach out to us and we can set up a workshop about the eCampusOntario H5P Studio, or you can attend one of our reoccurring H5P Studio workshops coming up in the next few weeks. More information to come on those. You can also enable hypothesis so that readers can engage with your text by annotating either privately or publicly. So if you've never heard of hypothesis, hypothesis is a simple web annotation tool that allows readers to highlight and annotate web pages, enabling deeper engagement with content. While the tool is available as a browser extension that can be used on any web page, Pressbooks allows you to build its capabilities into the pages of the webbook itself. So it's a plugin that you can use directly within Pressbooks. And this just means that readers can read and create annotations without installing the extension onto the web browser, so long as they have a hypothesis account. And public comments will be visible to anyone who comes to your book. So it's just a great tool for writing any comments and for you to respond to any comments that people have about your book. Perfect. So those are the interactive elements of Pressbooks. So before we move into organize organizing and exporting your book. I'll see if there's any questions in the Q&A. So this question, can you customize, add custom CSS to H5P objects in Pressbooks? If not, are there any plans to add this functionality? I think, Rama, do you have any insights on that? I know I keep reaching out to you, but
oh no, that's okay. That's why I'm here. Can you customize custom CSS to H5P objects in Pressbook? So within Pressbook, you aren't able to actually add any custom CSS unless the specific H5P interactive activity itself has the capability to allow you to add custom CSS. So the H5P content themselves are sort of created at a higher level by the by the group of the open for the actual H5P plugin itself. So that itself, we don't really have the ability to make changes to that without affecting a change for everyone else who's using that particular interactive activity. In terms of if we have any plans to add this functionality, so our H5P Studio, eCampusOntario H5P Studio, so that's generally where when we can make changes to H5P itself, we will make it there. But as we've discovered, any custom changes you make to an H5P content type, it doesn't really translate into, I guess, what's the word I want to use? It's essentially it doesn't transfer into other platforms. So you're kind of limited to being able to use that content within the outside frame that was used to create the actual customization in. So any custom H5P content we have in H5P Studio, you won't be able to actually import or embed that H5P into either your LMS or in Pressbook. So that's just sort of the limitation with with H5P plugin itself. The way it's set up currently is just localized changes that aren't necessarily transferable to other platforms.
Awesome, thank you. I knew you'd have some insight on that question. So there's a number of questions. I'll move on to how to organize and export your book in Pressbooks. So before sharing your work, it's important to consider how to organize and export your content. So some things to consider are, do you have sections that are only meant for the web? If so, you can exclude these from the export files. Do you need to move chapters around within the same part, or move them into a different section? Then you can take a look on the organize page and make sure it makes any of the same moves. And do you have your own book cover you want to provide for a print version of your work, or do you need to create a book cover? So those are just some considerations to include before you start to organize and export your book. So some export options. So Pressbooks offers several export formats to suit different distribution and accessibility needs. Whatever export type you select will be available in the download this book drop-down menu under the book cover. So you can see on the right-hand side there, under the drop-down menu for download this book, there's a variety of export files available. So some of the supported formats that you can export your book into are PDF for both print and digital distribution, EPUBs. I've exported plenty of books to EPUB from my own Kobo. Pressbooks XML and common cartridge with web links, and there's also a variety of other formats that you can see there that you're able to export your Pressbooks book into. So we do have some best practices for exporting books. So for example, if you are printing your book, you want to edit the PDF options and generate a cover. So these are just some of the PDF options. So make sure it's US letter size and the margins are at 2.54 centimeters. Other best practices include enabling two-level TOC, adding, if you're cloning, adding a source comparison to the book, and making sure that you're sharing the latest export files, just so everything's up to date and you're giving users the latest version of the book that you've created. So there are many ways that you can share your work. The webbook URL or digital PDF can be shared with colleagues and students in any way that you see fit. Your work can also be shared in the open library to allow access to the general public, students, and other educators. Criteria for open library submissions can be found in eCampus Ontario's suggestions for collections page. Rama, if you want to drop the link to that page in the chat, that would be great. So generally, any resource with an open license, such as Creative Commons, or that's in the public domain is accepted. Resources must also include at least one editable file. So Pressbooks XML, docx, HYP file, or any raw video files. And this is just once it's accepted and cataloged into the open library, this is what the page will look like, and the resources will look like on the open library website itself. You can also offer a printed version of the book, through, I have a prop, through our own print-on-demand services offered in partnership with the University of Waterloo. So this service provides high-quality print copies of resources found in the open library. The University of Waterloo's commitment to cost saving for students position them as an ideal partner for print-on-demand. So these print-on-demand services are offered at cost with a small shipping fee, and they're usually available within 1 to 2 weeks. So I actually had one printed for my own use last week. So this is what they look like. It's pretty basic printing, but if you need a physical copy of any resources, it's a great option to have, and it's relatively inexpensive as it is at cost, and for a small shipping fee, they will deliver directly to your home. Pressbooks also allows other users to find your book in the Pressbooks directory. So if you remember back in the sharing and privacy slide, I did mention that you can turn on or off whether your book is in the Pressbooks directory. So Pressbooks has released this directory. It provides an index of public books published across dozens of Pressbooks EDU networks, which does include eCampus Ontario's Pressbooks network. So by default, your book will be included in the directory if your book visibility is set to public. You can, of course, opt out of this service by referring to the sharing and privacy settings section for instructions. So this is just something that I briefly mentioned earlier, and this is just a little bit more information about the Pressbooks directory and what exactly it does. So finally, it's important to consider accessibility. So Pressbooks is built to be accessible, and it has undergone significant accessibility audits. However, there are some things that rely on you. So for example, to make sure you're using proper heading tags and that you are always including alt text for any images or figures. Additionally, you should use accessible H5P content types and run accessibility checks on any custom changes that you make. So the image on the right here is just from H5P itself, and it's a list of H5P interactive activities and their level of accessibility. So it's an important tool to have, and to make sure that everything in your book is accessible and remains accessible in the future. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll once again be able to answer them. So this obviously concludes the presentation. But if you do have any more questions that come to you later today or next week, you can always reach out to us at open@ecampusontario.ca, and we will be able to answer any questions that you have. Ram, if you want to drop the email address into the chat as well. I'm asking you to drop lots of things into the chat, but the email address into the chat so folks can easily access that and find that would be wonderful. Awesome, thank you. And Ram also dropped the Open Library website into the chat as well, where you're able to get a bit more information about the services that the Open Library has to offer. Awesome, yes, I'm seeing lots of thanks in the chat, so thank you for all the thanks. If anyone has any more questions, I will give 20 more seconds and then we'll close. Perfect. Yes, I'm glad the webinar was helpful. We are running, starting in the near future, running these sessions bi-weekly, so one on H5P and one on Pressbooks. So if you do want to hear me talk about Pressbooks again, feel free to drop into that. Or if you want to hear me talk about the H5P Studio, and we will you can attend one of those. We also do offer hands-on workshops. So we offer a 2-hour Pressbooks workshop where the second part is more hands-on. So feel free to reach out to us and we can set one of those up for you as well. Yeah. So if you relate, the presentation was recorded, so we're able to we'll check our social medias and you will be able to find that once everything's uploaded. And the slide decks will be shared. Yes, thank you, Rama. Perfect. Okay, if there's no more questions, everyone have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for attending.